Hi, my name is Seth Holehouse. I'm the president, auctioneer, and head of jewelry at Fortuna. I'm here to talk to you about a few of my favorite highlight pieces from our upcoming Fine Jewels sale, which will take place on March 19th in New York. You can view the whole sale on our website, fortunaauction.com, where you'll find more pictures, detailed information, and of course, where you can place your bids. The first piece I'll talk about is this beautiful compact from the late Victorian period that was owned by, at that time, one of the richest women in the world, Mrs. Thompson Dodge. Now, when you hear Dodge, you might think the automobile company, and you're right. Mrs. Thompson Dodge's husband was the founder of Dodge as we know it today. One question you might ask is, how can you tie it to the provenance of Mrs. Dodge? Well, there's two things that tell us that about the piece. One is on the inside of the piece, it's actually inscribed Mrs. H.E. Dodge, Grosse Pointe, Michigan. The other way we can confirm it belonged to Anne Thompson Dodge is the monogram that was carved into it. It was very common in this period and even later periods for people to have their monogram, which was usually a beautifully done representation of their three initials, carved into their jewelry. The compact is from the late Victorian period, as evidenced by the use of platinum and gold combined. Earlier in the Victorian period, they couldn't work with platinum because it required a really hot flame, which they did not have at the time. There's a lot of reasons why I picked this piece, but I would say that the number one reason is what it represents in terms of how people lived at that time. Now we're used to everyone carrying around iPhones and dogs in purses, and everyone's walking down Fifth Avenue to buy the new clothing piece that they can find. But in this period, life was very different. It was very elegant and delicate, and the craftsmanship that went into things was just extremely beautiful. Even when holding the piece in your hand, it's impossible to not be in awe at the intricacy of the work, and to think that one or multiple craftsmen spent probably hundreds of hours carving every little detail and hammering out the gold and setting the diamonds beautifully in there and the sapphires, and just every single thing about this piece and every square centimeter of the piece is decorated in the most beautiful way. This next piece of jewelry is from the famed French jeweler Mauboussin. Mauboussin was known for being one of the greatest French jewelers at the peak period of French jewelry, the 1920s. This was the roaring 20s, as everyone's heard, when the war just finished, there was celebration, and women were finding a new level of independence. And that was reflected in the jewelry and clothing and designs of that time that signified the Art Deco style. This piece is what I would call iconic Art Deco design. There's a few characteristics that the Art Deco jewelry are very famous for. One is the combination of materials. The jewelers in the Art Deco period did a magnificent job of using multiple types of materials, and even some that were less valuable, such as the carved rock crystal, to create their designs. This piece is beautifully crafted with a very Oriental-inspired design. You see the rock crystal with the enamel that is highlighting this beautiful design on the piece. And it's very small and delicate, but the statement it makes is very bold. And what's interesting about this piece is that we actually have a rendering of the original piece from the archives. So in addition to a letter from Mauboussin talking about the piece and authenticating it, they actually provided a copy of the original archive drawing for this piece of jewelry. And these are things that any collector gets very excited about. The third piece I picked out represents one of my favorite types of design that you see in jewelry. It's the Egyptian revival. This piece is very iconic for Egyptian revival, as it depicts the primary god that the Egyptians worshipped, who is Horus, the god of sky. Horus was depicted primarily as a falcon, but he was occasionally shown as a king wearing a red and white crown. If you think of ancient Egypt and you think of a character, most people will probably think of King Tut. It was the discovery of King Tut's tomb in the 1920s that inspired a whole wave of what we call Egyptian revival design. One of the things I really appreciate about this piece of jewelry, and you find this in a lot of the better quality name brand piece of jewelry in general, is just the quality. When you hold it in your hand, it has a certain weight to it, and you feel how the diamonds are set, and you feel how the gold work is done, and the piece in and of itself just feels quality and feels substantial. A lot of brands over the years have come and gone. There's a few that have really stayed strong and true throughout the decades. Cartier is one of the brands that's done that. They've done an amazing job of keeping their archives intact and educating the public with exhibitions of the history of their jewelry. They created a lot of the famous pieces of jewelry over the years for the kings and queens and princes across Europe and Asia. While new Cartier is still very popular and sought after, the presence and strength of its brand in today's market is what carries the vintage Cartier to its heights it achieves. Vintage Cartier pieces are highly sought after amongst collectors. A piece like this that was done in the 1970s with such a bold design and the Egyptian motif is something that most collectors dream of having in their collection.